Big Sills. The week of the National Football League's draft. Here we go. This is going to be the week of misinformation. Okay? This is going to be the week of misinformation. By the way, right out of the gate, what we're going to do, we're going to go team by team in what needs are, and then we're going to take a look at, look, I want to show you the most amateurish thing that you could possibly hear from an analyst. My friends, don't worry about the name on the back of the jersey. Find out whether or not that football player fits the profile of what you're looking for. The names are irrelevant, really. What you hear is the media talking about certain players. Tomorrow, we're going to have Jimmy Johnson on, and Jimmy's going to explain that for you. Today, Gary Cobb, as always, 4:30. We're going to get right to it. But I want you to understand the name on the back of the jerseys, the least important thing in this process when you're looking for talented players. Nobody gives a shit what the name is. Now, if it just so happens to line up that a need and the best player are there, that's what teams do traditionally. But what you do is you put in categories how deep certain positions are, linebacker, cornerback, what have you. This is a process. This is not about name. If you start drafting players because, one, they went to big schools, two, they went to super elite schools, three, and all you do is just hear the one player's name and not do your homework, you got to do your homework in something like this. And this is what we're going to do this week as the process of Thursday's draft. Every time I hear somebody barking about Miles Murphy or Branch or Skrinoski or Johnson, I already immediately know right out of the gate, those are just the people that you're isolating on. And that's the people that you traditionally just watch film on. First and foremost, you got to find out if they fit your scheme. Secondly, they got to find out if that person fits in the division. Remember, draft for your division first. You start talking about certain players that are out there, and they don't fit. What would be the number one need in the NFC East, in your opinion, right now? What do you think has to be a major position if you play in the NFC East like the Eagles? What's the biggest position? You got to stop the run. You've got to stop the run in the NFC East. Isn't that funny? And Tone's O-line. O-line dictates. Isn't that funny? The last 3 months, what have we heard? The running back position doesn't matter with the Philadelphia Eagles. Yet, the number one thing you have to do in the East is stop the run. What a contradiction. It's a complete contradiction. The run game, O-line, D-line. So how could the number one thing you have to do in the NFC East, stopping the run, how could you have the running back position as a non-factor or non-starter when you're talking draft? It's asinine. And here, we're going to get to the Derrick Henry. Well, we might as well do it now. The Derrick Henry conversation that kind of jumped up over the weekend. Anybody who says that Derrick Henry would not fit the Eagles system, I don't know what you're thinking. He doesn't. Derrick Henry fits everywhere. 1,500 yards last year. 1,500 yards. Are you crazy? How does 1,500 yards? By the way, you really think you have to feature him behind that old line in Philadelphia? That's unbelievably crazy to say. Derrick Henry running behind the greatest O-line in the game today. Instead of 38 carries, Derrick Henry's getting 150 yards on 12 carries. And he's getting 10 yards a pop. How would you like to have an offense that's averaging 7.5 yards a carry, whether it be Jalen or Derrick Henry? How in the world, with the passing game that they have in the three-headed monster and Dallas Goedert and the two receivers, not make sense? The people that say that, you should hear yourselves. The people on the radio in Philadelphia, you should really hear yourselves when you say this. No, I don't want to have 7.5 yards a carry in my offensive run game with limited carries and the three-headed monster that I throw the football to. That's ridiculous. So you don't want 7.5 yards a carry and 300 yards passing. How do you defend that? And on top of that, with a suspect defense, you're telling me you don't want 7.5 yards a carry. I'm really never going to debate that because that's ridiculous. Derrick Henry, you line him up behind Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts and him are running the ball. Jalen's throwing the ball. You can't defend that. They would be the odds. Here, let me ask you this. So if you put Derrick Henry in the huddle with the Eagles, are the Eagles the favorites to win the Super Bowl? Yes or no? You think they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl? Derrick Henry, who's going to the Hall of Fame. And by the way, he's built like Adrian Peterson. 340 carries. Do you know what you're going to do with that guy if he played in Philly? You'd probably take 100 carries off that. You couldn't stop them. That's crazy conversation. No, I don't want Derrick Henry. I'll take a guy in the 5th round. You got to turn the radio on. They could get a running back in the 5th round. I don't really need Derrick Henry. And don't ever compare Miles Sanders to Derrick Henry. It's like the moon and the sun. It's a whole different. Can you imagine Henry, what he would? So Henry ran behind the 3rd worst O-line in the NFL in Tennessee and got 1,500 yards. What would he do with the number 1 O-line last year in the NFL? 2,500 yards? 2,500? 2,300? 22 touchdowns? A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith would have been so open, they both may have been over 1,700 yards in receiving. The run game is what stopped Tom Brady last year because they had no run game. Everything is dictated off of play action, especially in the RPO. Dude, if you have, get this, there's a reason that the R is in front of the pass in RPO because it starts off the run game. Run, pass, option. Start, it's not pass, run, option. They don't start passing the ball. That's not the number one thing that D coordinators, when they face the Eagles, that is not the thing that they fear out of the gate. They fear the dominant running attack. Run, pass, option. There's a reason there's a progression in that conversation on how you construct that offense. But I don't want to have the best back since Peterson in the backfield. Sills, how much more tread do you think he has? Well, I know this. He won't have the carries he has in Tennessee and Philly. And if he got 1,200 yards instead of 1,500 yards in Philly, but he had 210 carries, I'd probably put 3 years on his career. And maybe 3 years on Jalen Hurts' career. crazy. I'm going to tell you something else. The Dallas Cowboys right now have gotten better. You know, I was listening on Friday to WIP, and they were saying how the Eagles have gotten better. And yet the Cowboys, because Mike McCarthy's now the play caller. Well, how do you know what your play callers? What gives you the position where you think Sean Desai and Brian Johnson are going to call better games than Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, and say that McCarthy's the play caller in Dallas, who's won a Super Bowl, and the other guy's been a head coach? You actually think you got better play callers now as coordinators in Philadelphia over Dallas? I don't think so. You're unproven. You are completely unproven. And for you, once again, that's in the land of, I don't know. You don't know what Sean does. You don't even know the front the guy's going to play. Wait a minute, Brian. Brian, Dave Quinn's a heck of a coordinator. Are you sure Brian Johnson's a better coordinator? The last time you guys changed coordinators from a Super Bowl team, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. When Frank left the building, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. But you're all of a sudden under the assumption you got better play callers in the building in Philly now when they haven't done shit. They may be. Let's see the first 4 games. You're right. I know what's in Dallas. Hey, and for the record, what's Sean Payton got over Mike McCarthy? Besides a better wallet, what's he done? He's 9-7 in the postseason. It's not like Sean Payton's kicked ass. They both have Super Bowl wins. Are you under the assumption? I think Sean Payton's the most overrated coach in the NFL. That dude also had Drew Brees. Also gave that guy Taysom Hill some shitty-ass contract that put the New Orleans Saints in salary cap hell. And he sold it to Mickey Loomis, and Mickey Loomis bought it. You're making that guy sound like he's going to all of a sudden go in there and turn Russell Wilson around. Oh, I hope so. I surely hope so. Sean Payton? Dude, don't make that guy sound like he's better than he is. Look at his postseason record. He's 2 games above 500, and he had Drew Brees. Jesus, wouldn't you think they'd be a little better than that? 9-7? I mean, you make that guy sound like this guy here's Tom Landry. Give me a break, man. I mean, Sean Payton, he's got a lot to prove in Denver. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Dallas, you're right. We know who Dallas is. Do I think Mike McCarthy's a great play caller? No. But I don't know anything about Brian Johnson. I have no idea what he's going to do. I know he's boys with Jalen Hurts. Fantastic. That don't make you a good play caller. Because I'm boys with him. That's your critique? Well, yeah, no, Sills. He knows Jalen and they're boys. That's why he'll be a good play caller. Well, has he ever been a play caller before? No. But he's better than McCarthy, who has a Super Bowl ring. Again, stupid-ass conversation. Wishful thinking. Potential. All those words that, end up meaning you haven't done it yet. We will soon see. Correct. But here on April 24th, that's a non-starter. You can't start by going, well, the Eagles have better play callers and better coordinators than Dallas. How can you say that? Sean Desai, how'd he do in Chicago? Are you sure about this? I think the hire's good. Cowboys got better, man. And I think they're getting a running back. And I think it could be Derrick Henry or Bijan Robinson. Why? I said it last week. Darren McFadden, Zeke Elliott. All first-round backs. Emmitt Smith. They believe in the run game. They believe in drafting running backs. The Cowboys have a different belief system than Philly does. Look, the one thing you can always count on, and tomorrow, Jimmy Johnson, when he jumps on, is the one thing that Jerry has not deviated from. What is that? He wants to duplicate the triplets. A big receiver, CeeDee Lamb, a big running back, which they don't have right now. They want a quarterback that plays like Aikman, which they do. The turnovers are absolutely not Aikman-like. And a pretty good O-line. They've always tried to duplicate the blueprint that Jimmy put in play that won 3 Super Bowls. Okay? Look at how they've replaced everybody. Michael Irvin, Des Bryant, Emmitt Smith, Ezekiel Elliott, Troy Aikman, Romo, Dak. All of it is duplicating the success that the Cowboys have had. They don't deviate off that. They want run-stopping defense, and they want playmakers on the perimeter. And they need to have their corners play better, especially in today's NFL. That's Dallas' system. They never go away from that blueprint. They just don't. Okay? They don't. Cowboys not trying to get Zeke back? I wouldn't want him back. The guy's out of gas. Zeke Elliott was built for 5 years to play in the NFL. Todd Gurley was built to play 5 years. You know why? Why do you think some of these backs today are not built for the game for a long period of time? You know why? They're not conditioned to play 17 games like they were in the old days, where you were the bell cow guy who got the ball for 300 times. You know what Eric Dickerson told me when he came into the NFL? And by the way, Eric Dickerson's first year, he had 1,800 yards. And you know what he said? By the end of the year, he was completely out of gas, and he had the best O-line in football. You know what he said? I knew in the offseason I had to get in better shape to carry the ball. I had to get in better shape. You know what he did the next year? He got in better shape and went for 2,105 in 16 games. Players today are still chasing that number down, and you got an extra game. So he could carry the ball 300 times. He had to be in better shape. Running backs today aren't in good enough shape, except for Derrick Henry, except for Adrian Peterson. They put the work in. They were conditioned to go the full season. Zeke was lazy. Isn't everybody in Dallas lazy? That whole football roster's filled with lazy players. That's why they don't finish the job. They're more worried about the star on the helmet instead of winning football games. They're not conditioned. They're not conditioned to run through the tape. They get halfway through the tape. How many times you watch Dallas and by the playoff time, they're out of gas? Why? They're not conditioned good enough. They're just not in good enough shape. That's why most of these running backs get hurt early in their careers. Why? Because you're not conditioned. Todd Gurley, same thing. You get your money, all of a sudden, you don't have to work as hard. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened to those guys. Henry works his ass off. Plus, he has a chip on his shoulder. Why? He was a second rounder. How was that guy a second-round draft choice? I think that him being a second-round draft choice is worse probably than even when Thurman Thomas was a second-round draft choice. Players today are not in better or in good enough shape, especially at the running back position. That's why that position's de-emphasized. How many guys do you see run the ball like Derrick Henry and Adrian Peterson? Shit, those two dudes. The running backs today aren't in that kind of condition because you know why? They're not asked to be. But yet the NFC East is built on running the ball. Yeah, but we don't really care about the running. Listen to your people who cover your team, especially the teams in the NFC East. The Eagles don't care about the running back position, but yet it's a running back division. Okay, I guess. Because you've had all these prolific passers in the NFC East over the last 12 years. I mean, unbelievable. Right? Washington runs the ball. New York runs the ball. There's a reason Saquon Barkley's there. Antonio Gibson runs the ball. The Eagles are dominant at running the ball. Yeah, but we don't care about running backs. Howie hates them. Okay. Yeah, that's how you win ball games. Sure, okay. It's crazy. Derrick Henry doesn't fit in the Eagles system. Didn't change it. And by the way, you don't really have to. Just put him back there in Miles Sanders' position. Derrick Henry will figure it out. Well, you think you're going to go into this year? Hey, by the way, don't you think it's more important this year than ever to have a running game? Why? What? I mean, honestly, you got a lesser defense and better teams. Isn't it important to keep the football away from guys like Allen and Mahomes and all them other guys? You couldn't stop the elite quarterbacks last year. Now you got your 5 best tacklers off the team, but you think somehow getting scrap heap guys, you're better. That is the dumbest shit going. It's the dumbest thing on the planet. You're not good on defense like you were a year ago. You could be good enough. And now you have a chance to accentuate the running game, and all you hear is, well, they don't care about the running game. That's not true. The Eagles do care about the running game. Look at how much money you pay in the O-line. And why not after what we saw today? By the way, Jalen Hurts. Okay? Jalen Hurts today, I believed every single thing that guy said. By the way, the Gucci tag on the sleeve, come on, dog. Come on, man. Got to cut that bitch off. Okay? You make $51 million. Everyone knows you wear Gucci. I don't think they're thinking that you wear Michael Strahan's collection. I'm not. Hey, dude, come on now. I know all of you over at the NovaCare Center. Give my boy some like fashion advice. Take the tag off, dog. Dude, you got to tell people it's a Gucci. And you know what it is? It's probably his first Gucci suit. And he wanted to let everyone know, man, I got me a good. Like we know, the first thing I bought was a Rolex when I got my signing bonus. I had a Rolex. I carried the box. I had the box. I didn't realize the box was that expensive too. Like green box and shit, you know? So the first thing I bought was a Rolex. Look what I got. Everyone's like, okay, you bought a Rolex. Everyone on my team's laughing at me because I got the box with me. I'd go on the road, I put the Rolex box. They go, you got the box with you? And I go, yeah. I got a Blue Oyster. Had that baby on. Everywhere I went, I'm going like this with it, you know? You see Jalen when he's talking, he's got the Gucci thing. Dog, I know you're not wearing Michael Strahan. Tag is stitched in. Get a new jacket. Get a new jacket. Come on now, dog. Hey, that looked like something that you get over at Men's Warehouse and you got the tag on there. It says this, half off. Oh, that suit was fly. Yeah, okay. Hey. Dude, the suit was good. The tag, I don't know, man. I don't know. It looked like he bought a Men's Warehouse suit. That's what hey, big and tall. Like one of them fire sale suits. Come on, dog. You make $51 million. You're either in a Gucci or an Armani. Okay? I got it. You look great, though, man. You did. You look great. Okay, outside of that. Hey. Tone goes like this. Hey, old man, You and the guys before you, man. You guys are showing your age here a little bit. I don't know, man. Maybe so. Wearing a Men's Warehouse tag on my suit when I just got 51 million per. I don't know. Big and tall. Oh, man. Hey, look, did you buy that off the rack? He looked good, though, man. By the way, the owner was so dope. Man, the owner was awesome. He was so proud. I've never seen an owner so proud to give $255 million away as I did this morning watching that press conference. And I believed him. I believe Jalen Hurts, too. Jalen's got a believability, and he's genuine. It's genuine. I love that. Believability, genuine, I believed it. I think, you know what? I think he's really proud for his family that he made that money. But I also think he's kind of embarrassed talking about it publicly. There could be two truths there to this, you know? Hey, isn't it wonderful, man? I got this contract. And then at the other end, he's like, come on, man. I don't talk about my money like that. Because it's not what this is about. You know, I was talking to my aunt today. And it's something with athletes. I think that's ingrained in us. When I was doing traditional radio, I won't lie to you guys, I was making like $500,000 a year. Okay? 500 grand. 500 grand. I did it for like 20 years. Okay? I made 500 grand. And as the last couple of years, because of the business and shows like this, and radio doesn't have those jobs in it anymore. But you know what I don't do? I don't lower my standards because the economic resources are not what they used to be. I'm the same guy. And that's what Hurts is. He's the same guy, whether he's making 1.4 or 51 million. You're not going to get any difference. That's why that owner doesn't have a problem paying him. Jalen Hurts is not going to play any different because he got paid. He's not, and you believe it. Okay? You believe it. I believed him. And he thanked his teammates. Without his teammates, he's not where he is. It's a team sport. He's the only quarterback I've ever seen get up there who got one of those gigantic contracts that realizes that it's about the roster and organization around you. By the way, he loves your city. Kid from Texas. Let me tell you this, man. A kid from Texas going to Philly, that might be a culture shock. Yeah. Okay? That might be a culture shock. As we move on here, we're going to get to the topics here in a second, and we're going to look at needs on all 32 teams at the beginning of the week as we get ready for Thursday's draft. So my wife lived her whole life in Texas. This is where I met her when I played with the Cowboys. And she had never been to New York. She had never been to New York, the Connecticut area, up through Philly. She had never been there. Never been through that neck of the woods. She's never gone up like the Jersey Turnpike or whatever. So we get up east, going over the Brooklyn Bridge. Wife's like, holy shit. We stop. My wife's looking around. All these guys are just like, nobody pays attention to anybody. You know how it is in New England. You know how it is on the East Coast. You know how it is in Philly. My wife finally, man, we stopped. Before we went to my grandparents' house, my wife goes, does everyone up here hate their life? I'm like, no. No, they just don't put up with bullshit. Yeah, but people in Texas are more friendlier. Yeah, South too. When I got down to Miami and I got down to Florida, I was like, wow, this is a whole different world. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? I'm like, what do you want? Hey, you know what I'm saying, guys? If you've ever been down south and you're living in Philly or Baltimore or New York or whatever, and all of a sudden people down south go like this, Hey, how you doing? What's going on? I'm like, what do you want? And the guy's like, no, what do you need? I'm like, no, what do you want? you, you want something from me, don't you? Nobody talks like that where we're from. Okay? Nobody does that where we're from. Hey, how you doing? Why? What's it to you? Oh, it's just different, right? It's just different. People aren't bad. They're just here. People in Philly and New York, Boston, all that shit. See, people in the South and like in Texas, they'll show you your cards. Where we're from, we kind of hold our cards to our chest until we figure you out a little bit. And so that's probably what he probably went through. Because when you roll into a place like Philadelphia and you're from Houston, Texas, bro, that must have been like being hit in the chin. Whoa, these people are different here. You got to just give it time. They'll warm up to you when they do. Jerome said the same thing when Jerome Brown was from Brooksville. Here, Hicksville, Florida, Brooksville, Florida. Okay? He got to Philadelphia. He calls me up. He goes, Sills. I said, give it time, dog. They're just warming up to you. They're not going to be your boys right away. Go out, get a couple sacks and shit. They'll warm up to you. Sure enough, man, he goes, man, I freaking love it up here. Me and Keith Byers and Keith Jackson have a house. Dude, they loved it after a while. Keith Jackson, too, man. He's from Sticksville. All those guys that come up to Philly, man, it's a culture shock, dude. It's a culture shock. Just in the presentation of how people are. That's what he was talking about today. And he gave it time. And you know how he won you over? Hard work, perseverance, and production. And it all resulted in today. That's what it did. And it panned out for him. That's why he's thrilled. You know, I would say this to you. Jalen Hurts probably figured Philadelphia out quicker than any guy I've ever seen play the position of quarterback in Philadelphia. McNabb didn't figure it out. You think McNabb figured out Philadelphia early in his career? Yes or no? You think he figured it out? Or do you think it was a learning curve for him? I know Randall didn't. Randall had troubles all the way until the day he left. And it took years for Randall Cunningham to figure out Philadelphia. Don't you think that's true? Randall's best years with Eagle fans were after he was done playing. Am I right? I like the kid from Ohio State. Yeah, but Jalen figured it out in 3 years. Jalen figured it out in 3 years. I think the organization had a lot to do with that because obviously Jeffrey Lurie was a better owner than Norman Brayman. Right? I think the owner helped out a lot in that process. I think Howie, you know, one thing too also, you got to give Jeffrey Lurie, I think he's figured out that he's got the three-headed monster now. You got the owner, you got the GM, you got the quarterback. That's how he sees it right now. He's in a good place. I would say this to you. Do you agree? I wonder what you guys think of this. We're going to move on here, I promise. You think Jeffrey Lurie feels better today coming off that Super Bowl loss about the future of the Eagles than he did coming off that win in 2017 about the future of the Eagles? You think he feels better today with the leadership of the team being in the hands of Howie and Jalen than he did when he came off that win even with Foles, Wentz, and Doug? Don't you think he feels better today? He sure sounded it. Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, sure sounded it today like he's in a really good place, even though you lost that game. To me, it just feels like they're in a better place. All right? It just feels that way. So let's move on to the topics. By the way, we got a ton of stuff today. We're going to look at every single team here on this Monday of needs. Because again, That's where you have to start with a draft, not with players. You have to start with needs. But I want to get to the topics first. How many people believe that a player like Derrick Henry would be a bad fit in Philadelphia? How many people? I can't wait to hear this one. How many people believe that Derrick Henry would be a bad fit in Philly? Okay? How many people believe that? Doesn't it even sound stupid? I'm personally cool with Henry being an Eagle. That's tone. Who in their right mind would not want that man on your team? He doesn't fit. What are you, crazy? He doesn't fit? I'm going to use Derrick Henry how I see fit. If he's here, watch this. Think of this. Derrick Henry is looking at you in behind Jalen Hurts. Hurts is in front of him. A.J. Brown is out wide. Devontae, that line in front of him. Goddard's there, and Henry's sitting here. Say he only gets the ball. What the greatest decoy you could ever have, and that's worth $10 million to me. What a freaking decoy. This is not a washed-up ball player. Look at that decoy that's sitting behind Hurts. He's sitting there, all 6'4" of them, looking like a movable refrigerator, going like this. There ain't a person on your defense that I'm not going to stiff arm and put on their back. Can you imagine A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry back united again, and they're out there beating the shit out of people in the secondary, running dudes over, and then Hurts just pops one over to Goddard across the middle? You can't defend that. It's undefensible. Is that not worth $10 million? Shit. That's going to deliver the Super Bowl. That would deliver the Super Bowl. Hey, 49ers. 49ers. You got Christian McCaffrey? I got Superman back there. Oh, yeah. Hey, Nick, look who's behind Jalen. Look who's behind Jalen. You've got the human highlight film that you don't want to be on. That guy will turn you in to an NFL highlight reel, no matter if your name is Josh Norman or if your name is Hufanga or anyone. He'll turn you into a human highlight reel for him. Sitting behind Jalen. Yeah, he's probably bad for the offense. I'll say Henry doesn't fit because he doesn't catch the ball from the backfield. I don't need him to, but neither did Sanders. Gainwell was receiving back, as a matter of fact, right. Give him some. Hey, dude, think of this for a second. Okay, so he doesn't catch the ball. I got 3 All-Pros that catch the ball. Hey, you know how good Gainwell will be with Derrick Henry in the backfield? I don't have to game plan Boston and Gainwell. I don't have to game plan them. They're just dudes. I got to game plan Hurts, the 2 receivers, and the tight end. You put Henry back there? What if you're a linebacker? How do you play that? Slow play Jalen? RPO? He hands it to him then? Good. So wait a minute. In the RPO, it's Hurts and Henry. Yeah, you're probably right. That's awful. If I was a linebacker, I'd be like, it's 2 sins. The lesser of the Jalen. Can you imagine the yardage Jalen will get? Hey, tone everyone. Do you guys agree. If Derrick Henry's lined up behind Jalen Hurts in the RPO, on 5 carries, Hurts would have 100 yards. Because you got to defend that guy. You have to defend him. And he's running behind Lane? So wait. It doesn't fit. Wait a minute. Here's Jalen coming down the line. So he's got Derrick Henry right here. Lane Johnson's right here. And you're going like this. And Dallas Goedert's over here. Maybe on a block and release on the RPO. So here's your RPO. Goddard is block or release. Henry's behind him, and everyone's running behind Lane. Probably sounds awful. I'm not even really trying to debate it. I'm just trying to point it out how dumb it sounds. I'll take a guy in the 7th round that I could give a shit about. I don't care about him. I'm not game plan. Derrick Henry's a different animal. By the way, would I be talking about Dalvin Cook like this? Kind of. Him? No. I think Dallas is in the conversation for him. So if you put Dallas on, or you put Derrick Henry in Dallas's team, you think they're better? I do. Massively better. So yeah, Derrick Henry's not good here in Philly, but he'll be good in Dallas. So Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry in Dallas with Dak and with CD. You might for the first time in 100 years get to a conference title game with that. And they closed the gap on Philadelphia with that move. I'm not saying they're better, but they would close the gap. Cue ball, the bird, Big Sills at work. Just wanted to say you the man. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you doing this draft week. All right, I'm going to move off this. We're going to get to the draft here in a second. Here's on Monday what I would do still, unless something changes. I would trade with New England to 14, draft Bijan Robinson, take the 30th pick, and trade it for either a player that you covet on a roster, like the linebacker with Tampa, or I would trade it for multiple picks in this year's draft. That's what I would do. Because you have 6 picks. Nobody in that. And by the way, let me say this to you. Paris Johnson and Peter Skornowski are not top 10 players. Not in my book. Not in my book. They're top 10 players in this draft, but they're not top 10 players. I think the guy at Northwestern's pretty good, but he ain't top 10. And I think the guy Johnson's pretty good, but he's not top 10 either. In a normal draft where you have a deeper draft, these guys would be in the teens and maybe at the top of the 20s. They're not top 10 players. That shows you how good this draft really is. There's like 6 players in it that are elite where you went, oh, wow, these guys are great. You get Henry, whoever keeps the ball, they average 10 yards a carry. Absolutely, Jeremiah. Okay? What's up, Will? I don't think those old linemen are top 10 guys. In this draft, yeah. But they're not top 10 talent. They're not. They're not like the kid Stanley or Staley, whatever his name is, from the Chargers. Just because they went to the same school don't mean that he's the same kind of talent. This guy's not Orlando Pace. Okay? He's not Orlando Pace. So when you look at guys like that, you have to look at the draft and you have to have the grade of the draft to go before you say, well, this guy's really, he's a top 10 pick in this draft. What does that actually mean? He's a top 10 player? You'll be very disappointed. Look, I'm not saying he's not going to help or he's not a good player, but to give up the 10th pick for one of those 2 linemen and then pass on Bijan is ridiculous. You would take players that would not be drafted in the top 10 in any normal year when you had a deeper draft versus a guy who could go in the top 5 in any draft. Do you understand the asinine thinking process of this? You guys are going, well, hey, the Eagles drafting a lineman. Right. Okay. Well, then trade down and get one of the guys. Get the kid from Florida. Get the kid from Georgia, Tennessee. You'll be okay there because you remember what Chris Landry said? It's about really the talent pool. Okay? Philly goes like this. Orlando Pace was the number 2 player picked or number 1. Right. So you're telling me 7 players removed, you think that the kid Paris Johnson's Orlando Pace? I don't. Or the kid from Northwestern, say he goes 5. You mean to tell me you think that kid's 3 less picks than Orlando Pace? Give me a break. See, people get caught up in what they're covering because they're looking at today. This draft is probably out of 10, a 7. At best, a 7. But see, people have to sell clicks and views and television ratings. So they're going to blow this thing up to seem bigger than it is. It's not. It's not a sensational draft. Even the quarterbacks are overhyped. The quarterbacks are being overhyped because the quarterback position in general is overhyped. Okay? Hey, Philly, I think Paris Johnson is going to be really good too. I'm not ripping you, dude. I'm ripping what people are saying about him. Hey, this guy's a top 5 pick. In this draft? Okay, I guess. That guy's not a top 5 talent, though. He wouldn't go in the top 10 next year. There's pretty deep guys coming out of the college ranks next year that are going to be really good-looking offensive linemen. I don't know. Okay? Always remember that. See, Will Anderson and Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson and Bijan, they're top 5 in any draft. You see how people miss it? And that's how you get Andre Dillard. That's how you miss it. You draft a guy 8 at O-line. In a weak O-line outside of the 6 guys that are in there that are rated in the 87th percentile. And after that, there's a cliff dive. But see, that's what people do. They take the guy at 8, knowing full well he's not a top 10 guy. But it's a need. So you overdraft. That's the key to this, not overdrafting. Look at Jalen Hurts, completely underdrafted. That's where you want to be in the world of, underdrafting. You know that famous line? Under promise, over deliver. That's what you're trying to do in the NFL draft. Under promise, over deliver. You know the guy that comes out going, I can do this for you, damn it, I could, and then he gets in there and you're like, this guy sucked. That's what the draft is. Howie Roseman's Achilles heel is the first round. Hey, the higher you are up in the top 10, I think it's harder to draft. Because there's more chances of failure at the top end of the draft than there is at the bottom of the first round. Absolutely. I think it's a crapshoot when you get up top. You know why Howie's good? Do you know why Howie's good in latter rounds? Because he drafts best player available. Once he gets away from the first round and the name and all that other shit, he goes by best player available, no matter what it says on the back of his jersey. Josh Sweat, Jason Kelsey, guys like that, they all fall into position for him. That's why he's better. His team does a better job of it. And for the record, how many people think that the Eagles are going to be in the top 10 in the next decade when it comes to picking somebody? You better pick a explosive, elite guy, not a guy who you're going to overdraft. Paris Johnson and Peter Skoronski are good ball players, like I said, and they'll be solid contributors and could go on to really good careers. But they're not top 10 players. They are not top 10 players. That's not Orlando Pace. That is not Jonathan Ogden. That is not Steve Wisniewski, Bruce Smith, or I should say Bruce Matthews. That's not those dudes. Top 10. Yeah, in this draft. In this draft. Those two dudes are being hyped, and you watch them on film. They're decent. And the kid at Northwestern played on a 1-win football team. And I'm like this. Okay, sure. And the guy at Ohio State couldn't block one dude from Michigan. Michigan? Okay, Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, like Michigan is producing a ton of edge rushers and defensive linemen. Not really. I sure hope so, for your sake. Okay? Dude, you're naming number 1 picks? You're right, I'm naming number 1 picks. That's what these guys are going. Number 1. Dude, I'm talking about guys, pick a lineman. Any of the ones that have been great. Trent Williams. I think Trent was a 3rd rounder. What was Trent Williams? What round was he taken in? Dude. Okay, number 1. Trent Williams was the number 1 player taken. What round was that? What year was that? Are the Texans blowing smoke? They say they're not interested in the quarterbacks. They want Anderson. They're going to be saying a lot of shit. Everybody's going to be saying a ton of crap right now when it comes to the draft. Lane was a top 5 pick. So you're telling me Skrzynovsky goes 5. He's Lane Johnson. You think Peter Skrzynovsky, who could go 5, is Lane Johnson? Okay. Trent Williams, 4th overall. So you think Trent Williams and Lane Johnson, this guy Peter Skrzynovsky, is the next Lane Johnson and Trent Williams? Okay. All right. Let's go through the NFL draft here. And I want to show you something here. And always remember, go off this list. Don't use names. You sound stupid. And here's something I'm going to bury the lead on you on. On Monday, don't ask me how the Eagles did in the draft with the players' names, please. It's the dumbest thing you can say. You won't know what these players look like for 3 years. Let me hook you up here. Address needs, the division, and the conference first. And then look at the team's needs and see if you addressed it. These guys won't even own helmets or jock straps yet. They won't even have their locker yet. And you want me to tell you how the Eagles did? Don't do that if you're going to name players. Because at the end of the day, nobody knows. It's bullshit. If somebody says the Eagles had a great draft, ask them, did they address their needs? Okay? And then you look at the players they took. But if you start naming players to me, how do you know? They don't even own a helmet yet. How would you know until you watch them play? The dumbest thing you hear is, you hear these McShays and these guys. Holy shit, Carolina had a spectacular draft. They took this guy from BC. They took this guy from Clemson. And you're like, how in the world could that guy know when these dudes don't even own a helmet yet? No. Tone. If they address the need and the player matches his evaluation, and then you put that all together, And then you go like this. This is a good pick. It's a smart pick. You're looking for smart picks. That's how you do it. You don't look at name. Hey, Bears drafted Skoronski. Well, they needed a lineman. Now it's going to be whether or not they overdrafted him and if he's going to help. It's not a terrible pick. They need help for him. That's one of the needs on the list for the Bears. Okay? Yeah, this ain't college football. If not a trade up for Carter, would you rather have Bijan at 10? Look, I'm starting to agree with some of the people in Philly saying 10 might be high for him, trading down to 14 with New England who needs an old lineman. And then put 30 on the block. I'm there. Latin Inferno, that's where I'm at. Especially with the Titans. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to trade down, get my guy. The thing you got to worry about is the Cowboys jumping ahead of you. Most of them don't even make the roster. Here we go. I'm going to show you how this works. This is the draft value chart that Jimmy Johnson invented that every team in the league, including Howie Roseman, uses. Okay? Bottom of the hour. Gary Cobb will be with us. And tomorrow, Jimmy Johnson will explain. He'll explain this. His value in his draft value chart that everybody in the league uses. If you're good, I know Nick Caserio uses it. I know Belichick, Pete Carroll use it. I know the Cowboys use it. Cowboys do a pretty good job of drafting. They just overpay. I know Doug uses it down in Jacksonville now with Trent Baalke because Jimmy is a consultant. Do you know Jimmy Johnson's a consultant to the Jaguars? Jimmy's consulted the Jags on their draft already this year. He's consulted them. 12 to 13 teams can contact Jimmy every year to be a consultant. He'll be on tomorrow, 3:30. And then on Friday for the week, he's going to go bookend. We're going to try to get him Thursday and Friday. He can't. He's going to do Monday and Friday. By the way, Gary Cobb today, Jimmy Johnson. Tomorrow, Drew Brees Wednesday. Thursday, Tom Telesco, general manager, in the first part of the show. He's going to try to give me 12 minutes. That's the GM of the Chargers. So we're locked and loaded. I should probably wait to start it at the top of the hour here. I'm going to because I don't want to get going into it and have to stop here after the first couple picks. But understand something when you guys keep throwing names out. It's okay. I'm not slamming anybody here, especially fans of the sport who love the sport and saw a kid in college do really well. But at the end of the day, this comes down, does the kid fit the scheme? Here, prime example. Remember when Rich McKay came on here and kind of gave me a lifeline? The Buccaneers drafted a 3 technique, me, and tried to make me a 0 technique, which I was never, and I never played it. And I heard something that Barrett Brooks said, and it was so profound. Barrett was being coached by a coach who was giving him faulty technique, and he started realizing he was putting shitty tape together, and other teams were going to see that. Barrett was smarter than me. He said, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not putting bad tape so other teams watch me. I did. I put bad tape. I had never in my life, high school, junior football, little league football, played nose guard. I was a 3 technique and a linebacker in high school. That's all and I played center. I was a center in high school, and I was a rush end because I was fat. I ran, before I got to 280, I ran a 4.6 flat. I was a fast edge guy. And so I would come off the edge. And I ran 4.6s in high school. And I was 6'2", about 255. This was 100 years ago, though. Okay, then once I got bigger, they moved me inside. Okay, they moved me back inside again. So just remember, man, does a kid fit the scheme? Tampa Bay drafted me, and I swear to guys, I'll never forget this. The Bucks used the 53rd player taken on me in the supplemental draft. Remember something, Reggie White was a supplemental guy too. I got there. They wanted me to play nose. I'll never forget. Mike Dubose was the D-line coach. I freaking hated this guy. I looked around and I go, why did these people draft me? This sucks. It was my second day. I was like, I don't know. I didn't know the technique. I didn't know how to put my hands. I didn't even know how to get down in a stance. Why would you do that? And get this. That Friday, I was getting ready to play the Gators. And all of a sudden on Sunday, I'm lining up against the Bears. I'm like, I had no chance to succeed. I didn't know the position. I didn't know the technique. I was a college player 48 hours earlier. And I'm at Tampa Stadium playing against Walter Payton on Sunday. That's the story for Sills. So when you draft a guy, make sure he fits where you're drafting him. Make sure you take the guy that fits the system here. All right. Do me a favor. Please hit the like button. We're going to go through all the needs of the team. This is the draft value chart that Jimmy Johnson put together. And we're going to talk to Gary Cobb from Fox 29 in Philadelphia at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk more about Bijan. I think it's important because I do believe they're at least trending that way. Hour 2.